did not count on John Robinson
Yep.
To have some integrity, and he actually cared about his fellow human being. And
well, let's take it a step further back. All right, we had talked about a gentleman named Lanz. All right, remember that? We had talked about Lanz, who was a courier.
Right. That is a big proof that historians will not argue with. In what was that? 1785. This guy Lanz was a courier for Wieshaupt.
Right, and he was taking basically literature to Paris from Germany, and what was contained in the literature that he had was basically they were going to bring on the French Revolution. And strangely enough, what happened is as he's riding his horse on his way, he was struck by lightning and killed.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting.
And that is not disputed, and the Danish government was informed of they found the paperwork.
Absolutely.
They found all those documentations.
All those documents were given to the Bavarian government.
Bavarian government, right.
Yes.
And the German government was warned, the
British,
the French, Polish, and Russia were all ordered, Austrian as well. Austria was warned.
And what did they say?
They just poo-pooed it away. And what happened to Marie Antoinette and Louis XIV? They lost their throats. The peasants revolted. In 1789, you have the French Revolution. Since that time, that plan also outlined for 3 world wars. And
that
multiple
is very interesting. That we have to bring up with another character because he was more, I could say, he was more of
a force behind bringing it more about.
There was another one, Giuseppe Manzini, who was working for the Italians, I do believe, and he was basically an extension of the Illuminati into Italy. And we have another gentleman. What do we got next here for Mr. X?
Oh, Mr. X.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Now this is interesting because you'll notice he is a Freemason. You will see he's wearing the Freemason tunic, is whatever the ribbon that is called, with the number 33, and you got the pyramid inside there, and you also have the Scottish Rites.
Now, this guy was born in 1809.
He was a general during the Civil War. He fought for the Confederacy. He was
born in Boston.
A big advocate of secession from the states, and he was involved in the firing on Fort Sumter, actually.
And it was speculative that he had something to do with getting the KKK together. There's some speculation about that.
Well, since they, like Lucifer, does everything in the dark, it's hard to say what they're at. Who was actually involved in forming something like that, because from day one they always wore hoods.
He was no dummy. He was what? An attorney, a soldier, a writer, a Freemason, and he's the only Confederate military officer or figure that was honored with a statue in Washington, D.C. Now, when you're doing your research, you came across a building also, a memorial building?
Yeah, this gentleman's name is, because we're going to throw out a couple more at you in a few minutes here, his name is Albert Pike. Was that his full name? I believe it was.
Yep, Albert Pike.
There's the Albert Pike Memorial Building in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there is the Albert Pike Consistency in Little Rock, Arkansas, also, where he had written what is called the moral dogma of ancient and accepted Scottish rites of the Freemasonry. Remember, old books were very long titled and very explicit about what they said, about what contained them. It wasn't Darwin's theory of evolution. It was Darwin's theory of evolution and lesser species and the survival of the fittest, something like that. Yes, it was quite long and very explicit. So when you find these anti-Mason or pro-Mason sites, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Freemasons, because when you look at some of the lower levels, they probably do a lot of good and are totally ignorant of what the agenda is, because this is the society within the society.
Let's recap for a minute, because we've been bouncing, all right?
Yes, we have.
So we've been talking about Adam Weishaupt, all right, beginner of the Illuminati in 1776, okay? Now when we break out the dollar bill, again, folks, these are some speculative ideas that need your research and attention.
Right up here so we can get a good focus on it.
We've pointed out before in the past that there's 13 tiers, okay, to this pyramid with the eye, all-seeing eye of God, Lucifer, whatever, 2 different perspectives. Anyway, it is also the idea that the Illuminati has come about, God has his idea of what a new world order is. All of his disciples and apostles were going around and preaching, get born again, Once born by the flesh, second, you're born by the Spirit. Once you're born by the Spirit, well, you're going to be born into the kingdom of heaven. And that's an eternal kingdom. Well, Lucifer, as the imitator, has his new world order that he wants to bring on before Jesus Christ can come back and bring all those militaries together to fight JC in the sky. Well, we all know the end of that in the book of Revelations. But, all right, let's go back here as we were recapping. Adam Weishaupt, the Illuminati, is, you know, the light bearers, the illuminated
Lucifer,
ones.
holder of the light. You got to remember that is a critical point in understanding a lot of this, because Lucifer, his fall was, I am the most beautiful, I deserve to be worshipped.
His will over God's will. So he was always the manipulator, the destroyer, the deceiver,
he was able to
the father of all lies.
And he was able to manipulate a third of heaven into following with him.
Indeed, angels. Okay, so then what we were doing, before we got to this gentleman, Mr. X here, which we already revealed, all right, we wanted to talk a little bit about, and we jumped away from it, Mr. John Robeson, all right, and what,
he actually exposed.
Right, we went back to Lons there, who got struck off his horse with the paperwork.
That's right. That's how that was discovered. And many people were arrested because of that. I'm not exactly sure what the charges were, but the Illuminati at that point felt as if they broke up. Right. You know, that was the end of the Illuminati as far as a lot of historians are concerned.
Right. And so it was at that time, in 1797, which is, what, a whole 20 years after the beginning of it, that Mr. or Professor Robeson came out with proofs of a conspiracy. And let's see, the following facts emerge. Adam Weishaupt, you know.
Yep, founded the Illuminati. Now, one of the things that was exposed in this was that Adam Weishaupt's philosophy was not necessarily about bringing about a world government in his lifetime. And that's one of the key things, because he wasn't really doing it for himself. And this was somewhere within among all these highlights and this was what the image that the Illuminati wanted to try to portray. And now this is where we can kind of bring this all the way up here to date to now 2006.
When I was recapping, I failed to say that, you know, as the good Lord had the 12 tribes of Israel, as well as the grafted Ephraim and Manasseh making the 13th tribe, well, there's the 13 bloodlines. If you look into the Illuminati, you will see the 13 bloodlines that since Nimrod have basically controlled history. You know, I mean, obviously God's not out of control of history, but God allows people who aren't subservient to his will to do his will because he's a free thinker. But anyway, to get back to, you know, what was found out from proofs of a conspiracy, talks about that the order was divided into 3 main classes. What we're talking about is right here.
Yep, the novices, Minervals, and lesser Illuminati. Now that would be people in the lower ranks, probably 1 through 30.
Yep. Well, you have your novices, your Minervals, or your lesser Illuminati, and it's kind of like what you were saying about the Freemasons. You know, can't condemn Freemasonry for being an evil organization, but once you know that there's fraternity within fraternity, and that only the higher echelons within the organization really know what's going on.
Right, correct? By their doctrine, they worship God.
Right. I mean, well, how could you condemn them when they have all these burn centers for children and do all kinds of wonderful things, right? Well, that's because Lucifer's an angel of light. That's right. But anyway, all right. So the initiates, they had your ordinary ones, who are consisting of Freemasons, and your Scottish Knights, the third of the mystery class, comprised of 2 grades of priests and regents, and of magus and king. The king, of course, was Mr. Adam Weishaupt. Okay? All initiates were required to take an oath to bind themselves to perpetual silence and unshakable loyalty and submission to the order. In the persons of my superiors, here making a faithful and complete surrender of my private judgment, my own will, and every narrow-minded employment of my own power and influence, I pledge myself to account the good of the order as my own, and am ready to serve it with my fortune, my honor, and my blood. The friends and enemies of the order shall be my friends and enemies. And with respect to both, I will conduct myself as directed by the order, and devote myself to its increase and promotion, and therein to employ all my ability without secret reservations. Secret society, folks. Taking a blood oath, basically. You know, if you are a traitor to the organization,